Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Greg Kahn. I'm the CEO of GK Digital Ventures, and thank you for joining us today for this great conversation and timely conversation. I know that everybody's calendars are filled with virtual events, have been for the past year, and we're finally getting out in the real world again, which is terrific. But we've assembled a really great group of panelists today to have a lively conversation around the immersive at-home experience. And I'd like to start off before I introduce each of our guests with a few interesting statistics around the at-home experience to underscore the level of growth and disruption that's taking place in this industry. In a year where tech has played a crucial role in keeping people connected, it might not be surprising that monthly tech sales have been up year over year since last March when COVID restrictions hit the US. In the months that followed, tech sales experienced double-digit growth, and this momentum is expected to continue throughout the rest of the year. According to NPD's Future of Technology report, the last quarter of 2020 had historic growth of nearly 20% compared to the same time period in 2019, which saw 4% compared to 2018. 2020 saw healthy gains in categories associated with learning and working from home as consumers across the country outfitted their home offices with the equipment needed to maintain productivity. Gains in home entertainment categories were notable as well, as consumers looked for ways to fill time while at home for an extended period of time. High growth categories included notebook computers, which are up 45%, tablets 37%, monitors 84%, printers nearly 60%, keyboards and mice. And media consumption has rapidly increased too. Nielsen studies showed that homebound consumers have led to a 60% increase in the amount of video content watched globally. And a recent study by Double Verify took it further, saying that consumers doubled the amount of content they consumed on a daily basis. That's a lot, gentlemen, and I'm excited to introduce each of you to the panel today, starting with David Beck, the former EVP of AMC and Warner Media, among others, the managing partner of Brave Media Ventures. Keith Soljacek, who is the VP of Experiential Technology at Digitas. Scott Campbell, the Industry Executive Advisor of Media and Telecom at SAP. And last but certainly not least, Tobin Richardson, the President and CEO of the Connectivity Standards Alliance. Welcome to each of you. Would love, as I sort of, I'm going to turn to each one of you, if you could take about 60 seconds to introduce yourselves. And at the same token, our fifth panelist has arrived too. Lori, you're right in time as we're getting started on this panel. Lori Schwartz is the CEO of Storytech and will join us as well. So each of the panelists, if you could take no more than 60 seconds, please, just to explain what you do and your role in the digital home sector. And I'm going to start with my left. Scott Campbell, over to you.
Sure, thanks, Greg. Hi, nice to meet you and the panel and everyone watching. So I run SAP's media and telecom practice in North America. SAP has got about 4,500 media customers that run our platform. 10 out of the 10 top studios, in fact, run SAP for all their production, accounting, but also with solutions going right through to in-home piece, where customer experience is a big part of our portfolio. So it's great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Scott. Keith.
Hey, everyone. I'm Keith Soljacek at Digitas, and I lead our experiential technology capability. At Digitas, the connected marketing agency certainly leans into technology in a big way to connect consumers with brands. And my specialty areas are in the XR, AI, voice area, and how brands can use emerging technology to make those really valuable connections with consumers in an immersive way.
Thank you, Keith. David.
Hi, David Beck. I've spent most of my career on the publisher side at Warner Media and AMC and Univision, and also started a company called Brave Ventures, which was focused actually on sort of social media and digital media 1.0, helping big media companies do a better job of engaging their fans. And originally that was through social platforms. As we've moved into streaming and I've worked directly on the streaming products of AMC and the early days of Warner Media, it's going to be very interesting to see sort of how streaming evolves and is accelerated by everything that's taken place over the past year via COVID, and how we begin to bundle various services and experiences together to engage consumers. And so looking forward to this.
Thanks, David. Tobin.
Hey, good morning. Great to be here as well. Tobin Richardson, CEO of the Connectivity Standards Alliance, and we are really about creating foundational technologies to make the digital home work. We have about 20 years of creating interoperability standards that really form that connection between different devices and a language for the Internet of Things. And so you've seen us and our standards really enabling simple device interactions between light switches to light bulbs, getting Alexa to turn on your lights and other interactions like that. As we go into our kind of the next phase of the digital home, it is really about setting in place that infrastructure, that underlying infrastructure that enables all these really cool use cases and innovations. And we're doing that with a new project called Matter, which we just rebranded this last week. We've got basically every major ecosystem on the planet finally agreeing to work together and really open up those walled gardens. So pleasure to be here today and talk about this.
Thank you, Tobin. And Lori.
Hi, everybody. At heart, I'm an experiential marketer. I advise business leaders and executives on how to adopt successful digital initiatives, and it manifests at a lot of events. I lead the executive tours at CES for the CTA, and I'm also serving on the board of the Television Academy for the Interactive Media Peer Group to help everyone understand what is the future of content. So I'm looking at all of these trends in a big mosh, trying to dissect it.
Thank you. Well, we have a terrific group assembled here today. Excited to dig into this conversation together for the next 40 minutes or so. This is a question for all of you. And Lori, I'm going to start out with you. There are a lot of lifestyle changes that we all made during the global pandemic. Us sitting here on Zoom is one, as opposed to being in person. We know that consumers' relationship with technology changes. Lifestyles became intertwined with tech. Smart scales, digital assistants, lights, connected TVs, smart speakers, they all work together. Let's start this on a positive note and optimism. There are a lot of challenges over the year, but what positive changes have you seen over the past year with the adoption of technology that gives you optimism going forward?
Well, I think there's two fronts. One is the just personal behaviors front. So I think a lot of us are closer to people than we were before. So for instance, I'm in LA, I grew up in New York, and now every 2 months I speak to my high school friends on a group Zoom. And I've been hearing that over and over again, that the sort of full, Monty sort of adoption of this tech also for families and personal connection. So I think we don't often talk about, while we're all exhausted by Zooms on the business side, there's been an adoption of this on the personal side, which I think is fabulous. And then on the business side, there are a lot of technologies I think that have taken deeper root. For instance, a day doesn't go by where I'm not using my Quest 2, my Oculus Quest 2. And I use it to meet people. I use it to exercise. I'm also studying new entries for the Emmys in it. So there are a lot of, I think, ancillary toys that were out there that are now becoming real solutions.
Thank you, Lori. Keith, what's your perspective that gives you optimism?
Yeah, well, we did take a giant leap forward in technology adoption and usage, and really that rising tide is lifting all boats. And even from some of these technologies that we thought may not cross over into mainstream for a few years. And Lori mentioned, the Oculus Quest 2 and really all game engine based entertainment lifted up in a big way that now it's such a huge part of a lot of folks' lives. And what's great about that is the personalization and participation in that technology. And I really do think participation is going to lead the way in the next generation of entertainment and of home entertainment.
Yeah, that's I often talk about gaming coming out of the basement physically and digitally during this time period, and it's definitely ready for prime time, and participation is the key. David, you've been around many different media companies. Lots of changes have happened in the past year. What has been a positive change that you've seen from the broader media industry over the past 12 to 15 months?
Sure. I mean, one point that I'll make, just building on the participation point Keith made, is one thing that I've been thrilled to see is sort of, the gap of technology understanding between my kids, myself, and then my parents, I felt was growing for some period of time. But during COVID, it actually collapsed quite a bit, because there's been a reduction in the friction to my parents wanting to participate or using a QR code, which now they have to use every time they go into a restaurant. I mean, even last night with my kids, my 6-year-old literally looks and says, points to the QR code when he wants to see the menu. I mean, it's kind of mind blowing that that's the reality we're in. But what manifests is that there's actually, when they're together in real life, which they were together for Mother's Day, they were more comfortable, playing on devices together, or sort of just engaging in the same technology. And I just don't know that that would have happened on its own. So I think that that's just an interesting observation in terms of the reduction in participation. What's another plus from a business standpoint? I mean, I think there's, some of the best content that's ever been produced is out there in mass. I mean, I still think we have some challenges around search and discovery, but I do believe that, the interfaces, and as people become more familiar with the interfaces on connected TV, the ease in which people are able to navigate all the different services and get to what they want, whether it's long form or short form, is there, and that's going to improve. So there's a lot more we can talk about, but I'll pause there.
Yeah, David, and just a nod to your QR code, which is a tech that's been around for decades, and
Right.
it's incredible. In 1 year's time period, not even just menus, there was a China activation with drones that were assembling the shape of QR codes. It's on packaging. It's sort of the adoption over the past 12 months has been incredible, and I think hopefully we don't have to have another pandemic to see some of these shifts happen with other technologies, but it is definitely was a positive step. So thanks for highlighting that. Scott, what are you seeing that gives you optimism for where we are?
Sure. So there's no question. I think the COVID situation has accelerated everything. I mean, I've been a fan of digital Hollywood for about 20 or plus years now that this event's been happening, and we've been talking about VR and augmented reality and things for a long time, but it's a kind of perfect storm, I guess, when you see the arrival of things like 5G in the US, and the capabilities, the speed of phones, as well as the demand kind of rising now. And I think you're starting to see Netflix and companies like that, including augmented reality or virtual reality content as part of their experience. It's not just the traditional movies that they're getting their customers to engage with. So there is that. Apple are doing it as well, of course, with bringing games into their sphere as well. So it's an interesting time, lots of healthy competition, and there's the biggest challenge, I think, is where to get things from. We'll watch a season of one thing on Netflix, and then I'll find that it's actually on Hulu for the next season and somewhere else for the next one. So Google is your friend in that sense. You go and find out where the next season is, but it's an interesting time. I think you're right. The comment that was made about discovery, there's still a challenge there, but I think we've seen all the major players now pivot, which is the hardest thing for a big company to do, is to reinvent themselves in a crisis. And that's literally what I think all the big companies have had to do. You've seen, Disney Plus, Peacock, Paramount Plus, all of these new services coming out, since COVID, and clearly there's just an abundance of content being made available through that.
Good points there, Scott. Tobin, you've managed to wrangle almost all of the major tech companies together into one group. I would just say that that's optimism in and of itself, of getting everyone together, but you're seeing it all from the standards point of view. What are you excited about from the last year?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was curious with COVID whether or not we'd see a pulling back, and really what we saw was a doubling down. And I think that's because there is that focus on on delivering and being able to deliver better digital content faster and in more disparate ways. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, we've got, you know, everybody and their mother in terms of all the ecosystems and the major players coming in. That's positive in terms of what the industry is doing. I look at, you know, in terms of the experiential side, you know, I've got two, you know, grown children. This is really, they're living in different cities. And this, you know, COVID has really given people an opportunity to actually be closer to people they're farther away from. And that's been kind of something that's really been interesting to observe, you know, how that's been supported by this, and people that in my family that would never have gone on camera, but they're doing that for work. So no problem getting on camera. And now I'm actually, you know, personally connected with family members that I haven't talked to in years, just by virtue of this, you know, comfort level. And so we've kind of skilled everybody up to this kind of digital literacy, that there's a comfort level of being more engaged that way. And I think that's actually been, you know, a very positive outcome of this, and I think will actually allow us to be more connected now than before.
We're setting the bar higher and higher, Tobin, which is a good thing. I want to get into our next topic, which is, as we start talking about new entertainment experiences. Keith brought up the word participation. And what's becoming really interesting in the categories in which we all play is that there are different experiences that are being created by new service offerings and new bundles from all of the players, the traditional media players, the technology players. There's new content in fitness and wellness, music, gaming, education that can all create stickier subscription bundles so that consumers ultimately become more loyalists for their entire life. And frankly, that they're putting more of their disposable income towards these entertainment bundles. So in this past year, we've seen a ton of change. Obviously, Zoom and Peloton were two of the hero products of the past year. Many of our children have been on an online school for almost a year time. Telemedicine has taken off. I'm going to start with you, David, in terms of from the lens that you see in these new kind of experiences and bundles. What do you think consumers are craving as we start to emerge out of COVID, right? There are pieces of the entertainment bundle or the content bundle that have certainly taken off during this period of time. But as we start to emerge back into public, what do you think consumers will crave in terms of the packages that they're looking for?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And as I'm staring out the window to finally some nice weather in New York and hopefully some more time in the city soon, I'd say obviously there's going to be a surge of sort of in real life experiences. I think I just saw Live Nation book more shows, you know, for 2022 than it has in 2019. People are obviously going to look for those in real life experiences and go after them. But when they're home, the sort of connected living room and kitchen experience, I think is gonna be something that people lean into. You know, over COVID, there's a service that really took off that I've done some advisory work for called the Spirits Network. And Spirits Network is, you know, sort of for ages we've been promising, you know, content plus commerce. And this is a network focused on spirits and the history of tequila and cocktail making and craft cocktail making. And so, you know, the ability now to sort of, again, really enjoy the content and be able to click and have the delivery of alcohol or whatever it might be within an hour and actually experience that, you know, as a group. You know, those things, there was a decent degree of friction in the past. And I think a lot of that friction has gone away. And so those experiences are more seamless and people will be able to sort of enjoy that in a way versus, well, this isn't really working, or, you know, I can't get XYZ to load, or it's not available in my area. I think those challenges, a lot of them were addressed during COVID. You know, the other area that I'm optimistic about is around kids' education. And I really think a lot of investment needs to go into the edutainment space. Another company, just to give specific examples, a company called Encantos Brands, which is very much focused on story teaching and the blending of content and in real life experiences, particularly for the younger learning sector. And so, you know, whether that's following content that you're watching along with books and puzzles and other in real life experiences that you can have, I think given that, you know, we all want to go back to school, there will still be a lot of learning that can happen at home, and the blending of content as well as the ability to sort of have a collective in real life experience around it. I think you're going to see more of those. You mentioned, fitness and wellness. That's a whole other area that's obviously been very, very active, but I'll pause there.
No, it's great perspective, David. I think you bring up sort of the intersection of physical and digital in terms of experiences, and there's sort of another layer to that too in what you were talking about with spirits, which is also now combining that with smart technology in the kitchen of, so, your smart scale or whatever the case may be. You see that with sous vide, you see it with grilling, where companies are moving towards this content commerce model combined with smart technology. Keith, your organization, Publicis, represents Whirlpool among others. Love to get your perspective on just how, David mentioned smart kitchen, connected kitchen being one area. What do you think consumers are looking for with the clients that you represent?
Yeah, sure. I mean, excuse me. Again, we keep coming back to the impact of COVID, and a sizable chunk of the population now is going to continue to stay home for work. And that really influences a lot of things in their life. And I do think there's going to be a contingency that's a little more picky and choosy about what they leave the house for. And when, like David had mentioned, the conveniences that have sprouted up around COVID, really make it to the point where you say, boy, do I need to, pay 2-3 times what it would cost to go out to do something that I could, previously now do at home. And certainly entertainment is in that area, but yeah, the sort of democratization of cooking at the home and making that easier, working from home. I just think that, there's things that we are looking forward to getting back and getting out to do. Going to a concert, right, is a great example, but, Live Nation coming up, scheduling concerts is great, but I may just be a little more picky and choosy of where I spend my money, where I could utilize a service like Wave XR at home for a virtual concert that is, it's a completely different entertainment than actually going out and going to a show. Wave XR, if you're not familiar, they create all of their, musician concerts utilizing a game engine. And it's again, back to that word participation, you're participating and guiding that experience. And while that's a virtual concert, that's a different experience than what, you'd see in real life. So, those things I think are going to continue to grow, continue to proliferate. This sort of differentiation between what you would expect in an in real life event and then what that digital equivalent is at home, I think will continue to separate as some of these companies look to, steal away eyeballs.
Lori, just on that theme of what Keith has shared and thinking about rethinking what the concert, the music experience or the sport experience might be for folks, maybe they're a little bit choosier. There's definitely a sect that wants to get out in public and see people in a crowd. There's also, we've again trained or upskilled folks to now say we want more from our home environment. It's a very crowded space right now. There's a lot of competing entities in the field on all sides, right? How do you see it from where you guide brands to think about this space and where consumers are heading? I think we're at a really interesting time right now, mid-May, kind of leading into the summer with COVID, going down. How are you advising brands to kind of think about the space and that bifurcation that Keith just mentioned of, sort of that enhanced experience at home with concerts, with the fact that Live Nation and iHeart and others are going to be programming in person and sport leagues are coming back in person as well. Love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think that you should be sinking, sinking your eggs in all one basket? What's the expression?
Putting your bag. I think it's pudding, but we could say sinking yeah, your eggs.
Spilling all the milk in the Rolling Stone or whatever. I think you need to be trying everything right now a little bit. I think if you're not building some sort of digital transformation in your organization to basically be there to support digital interactions, whatever your category and business is, then you're not being smart about 21. Like 2020 may have been like shock and awe. What do we do? Scramble, virtual, whatever. But 21 should be building infrastructure to support digital transformation so that whatever your business is, you do have a digital underbelly to support it. And then you can decide, okay, for this thing, I'm going to do digital. For this, I'm going to do analog. And you pivot. And that's really the discussion about hybrid is not even about combining everything at once, but it's really about being able to choose what's the right solution for the right situation, and take care of audiences that do want to be near each other, but also take care of audiences that maybe don't. So that's really it. If you're not right now building something to support what's coming, then I think that's the problem.
So I'm going to tee up the next question to Scott, and then the following one to Tobin around just in different interfaces. And we're going to start with VR, AR, mixed reality on Scott's side. So there are all of these, some new, some technologies that have been around for a couple of years, but that are becoming more mainstream. We talked a little bit in the intro about QR codes that have been around for decades, and yet it's really, the adoption is incredible during this time period. Virtual and augmented reality, we can talk about too, Scott. And my question is that there seems to be real growth in the augmented reality category. There are a lot of reasons for that. LiDAR within the iPhone 12, media companies really pushing it out like Snap and others. Virtual reality continues to chug along. I think us media and entertainment junkies probably are greater consumers of the technology than most, but it chugs along. I'd love to get your perspective on both of those areas, mixed, augmented and virtual and mixed reality. And in the context of what we're talking about, where folks are starting to get back out in public again, where do you see adoption? Is it sort of where you expected it to be, Scott, from years ago, or has it kind of stagnated? And give us your perspective on those areas.
So I'm kind of looking at that through a kind of telecom lens as well, I guess, because I think again the liberation of the wire when it comes to high speeds is and I'm talking, I'm assuming everyone maybe on this call's got a 5G device by now, maybe not, but you're talking, or I'm experiencing 7 times the speed of my Wi-Fi network on 5G. So it's a game changer, and you can't put that into context enough unless you're in that real life situation where maybe there is, the need for no latency in things for you to experience it. It's hard enough sometimes on Zoom sessions to hear the voice at the same time as the video, never mind to be able to have a surgeon, control the robot at the other end that's performing an operation, So 5G really is a game changer when it comes to enabling a lot of this stuff, as I talked about before. The challenge really is companies being able to pivot and be agile enough to do things. And smaller companies can do that, but the bigger companies, that's their big challenge. So in COVID especially, where studios got closed down for periods until they established new processes for the production to be safe for the crew and everyone that's on the studio locations. So I think in the arrival of augmented reality in 5G has been an obvious use case, and we've got some telecom companies in Europe like SK that are doing the League of Legends park using AR, and the fans can actually message each other and face in certain directions to have, I guess, different interactions. And that's happening in sports as well. As you're watching sports, you can have the overlay, if you like, of the fan data about the player and things as you're experiencing that. Verizon is also another one that's one of our partners through the 5G Council that's doing some progressive stuff with the reimagining the fan experience, again using some of the VR live broadcasting and VR playback stuff during games in certain clusters. And sorry, that's also SK Telecom in Europe. And Vodafone also, we're seeing Vodafone in Europe with Viacom CBS are actually now starting to use the 5G stuff in the production end of things as well. So, the video content is being filmed and distributed back to the production places in much faster, than they would previously be doing that stuff. So I think, as I said earlier, it's a kind of perfect storm. The demand has risen, but the capability is also, I mean, talk about Moore's law and doubling and all that stuff every year, but we really have seen that, combination, as I said, of the device's ability to play the graphics and do all that stuff in your hand, and the network really, be truly liberating in that regard. So it's an exciting time from that point of view. And I think the no fans in the stands experience has been challenging for the sports companies over the last year. There's no question about it. So they are definitely, and I spoke to the president of the San Jose Sharks, who said, it's great for them to have the fans able to watch the games live. What he really wants to see is the fans cheering coming back into the stadium, because the players are in this empty stand trying to play the game without the cheers and the roars when they score and stuff. So for the players in the sports context, that's the challenge of them not having the fans in the stands. So there's interesting dynamics all around in that regard. But as I said, just lots more, as I think Laurie said, anyone that's not thinking about the digital strategy today will be struggling, because there's not going any back to normal. Let's be clear, this is not going back to anything. This is going forward from where we are today. And you're right, there's people that will be nervous about going to live concerts. There's also new experiences. Even Zoom is doing stereo now. So, the listening experience, I have a monthly call with friends where we listen. I've got a rare music library, and we listen to songs on Zoom in stereo every Sunday. And it's like it's getting the album vinyl out in the old days where we'd sit in a room together and talk about the liner notes. That's kind of the community that's coming back, ironically, in this digital world that wasn't here before COVID. And it has kind of spurred that friendship, community spirit of people actually getting together in Zoom or online. But not just in games, is my point. People that maybe just want to experience music and talk about it with other people and enthuse about it. That's like Tim's Twitter listening party started that whole idea. But like I said, with Zoom and stereo, that's another great use case today.
Scott, you've shared a lot there, and I think I want to unpack some of that. You mentioned community. You mentioned sort of there are a lot of use cases that have developed for augmented and virtual reality. With the advent of 5G, obviously Verizon is putting more into spectrum, as is AT&T and others, so that we do have greater connectivity in the US. I'm going to pivot slightly to voice, because I think there are a lot of technologies that are also competing in terms of the attention of time of consumers. If you were able to see beyond my screen here, you would see every version of Siri, Cortana, Google, Alexa, et cetera, within one room. And I'm going to address this question to Tobin, Mr. Standards, in this area. But, voices, Tobin, you and I have been talking about just the evolution of the digital home for years. And voice has been kind of one of the leaders in that. There are obvious benefits to voice as a platform that we've seen really take shape during COVID, in the same way that code has. When we went from a world where we were touching screens to now an area where it was better to have a lean back experience and to use voice as a platform to be able to consume content or to purchase products.
Mm-hmm.
Love to get your perspective on where voice fits into this world and where we're going, and also with the lens of the standards that you're kind of putting together with all these companies.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and yeah, you and I've talked about this for a long time, and voice really kind of feeds into an ambient experience, right? I mean, if I'm touching something, I have to get up and go and touch the screen over here and get to this interface. And yeah, as you said, that I'm looking up at all the other different boxes just above the lens here from our member companies with their voice products. I think voice is a key piece, and it was a key enabler for a lot of these new experiences in the smart home and the digital home that I think are driving new experiences, new areas of evolution there. And I think that was, again, back to that point of kind of that digital literacy. What that then begs is integration of voice interfaces with all sorts of different products. You may be using an Amazon or an Alexa. Your son or your daughter may be much more into a different platform, a Google or what have you, or Siri. And I have to be careful that I don't activate anybody by doing that. But that's also the point too, is that you're seeing kind of the next evolution of this with voice recognition, the ability for everybody to have their own experience, right? So as I listen to the comments that were just made about kind of this new experiences in homes, these are not just replacing kind of the analog experiences. They are creating new different kinds of digital experiences that can't necessarily be replicated in different areas, right? So Scott's going to have a great stereo experience on listening to music that he probably wouldn't achieve if everybody was in the same room, and they're able to kind of have a different way of listening to the music. The same thing on voice, right? So if I've got an ability to really interact with the voice interface that I want, that's great. But all of these companies need to now kind of play better together, play more nicely together to allow those individual experiences. And there's a balance to that, right? Because if I'm Amazon and I've got an Alexa system, I don't want really the rest of that house to be using Google or others from a competitive landscape. But I also, at the same time, want to be delivering a great user experience. I want every individual to be really enjoying whatever digital experience they're having in the home. So as I look at that standard side, which is the area that we live on, we want to make sure that those interactions are seamless, that you can reach more and more devices seamlessly through that passive experience and that passive engagement via voice. And we absolutely think voice is a key and growing area to that. So we're going to work on ensuring that infrastructure in the background works as seamlessly as possible. And on some of the initiatives that we have going on right now, that is absolutely front of mind in terms of ensuring that ecosystems can engage with other ecosystems, that devices can engage simultaneously with multiple ecosystems. So there are a lot of things we're going to have to deal with if your child is in the room saying, turn on the garage light, and you're in the kitchen saying, turn on the garage light, which one wins out, right? So there are still some of these permissions and other areas that kind of need to be worked out. You're the parent, so you're obviously going to override, but what happens when it's a sibling to sibling? So there's all sorts of great great use cases that we have to kind of knock down. But voices will continue to be I think a really key area, and there's a lot more to do there.
Thanks, Tobin. This is, I think we're going to have to do a part 2 of this session about how much to unpack with all of these different companies, because there's a lot. We talk a lot also about naming conventions is really important. That what a daughter or son or mother or father might call something is very different than what someone else, and it's different by platform. So in terms of that seamless user experience, that could be really challenging. I want to talk. We've probably time for one more meaty question before we sort of get to the wrap up. And I want to talk about data for a second, because so much of every technology is really powered by and creates an incredible amount of data that feeds many of the businesses that we are part of. About individual users, we're in a really interesting time in the US with a new administration, with different rules and regs, with some competing lawsuits that are taking place with different companies. But we know that data also, if it's used correctly, if there's the right value exchange for the customer, that it could create a better experience for them, and they will be more than happy to share their data. We see this time and time again, particularly with content. I'm going to start the question with you, Dave, and just what do you see as the future, or I should say the near future, of leveraging big data to create a personalized experience, knowing that there's this tension in the US right now between how much data should be shared with a platform and how much should the individual kind of own? Where do you see the near future of this?
Well, I see is very soon on the horizon, a tense focus on permissioning and going and putting the consumer, the individual, at the center of this discussion. And I know there are a number of players out there that are all trying to address the issue of permission and consent. So how do you incent someone to provide their information? And there are a myriad of ways in which, as you said, people may be willing to actually lean in and provide certain aspects of their data or tracking in exchange for something, right? And so it's finding that balance of what's the exchange, what's the data value exchange, and that's that's not new, but it's being implemented now. And I think brands and publishers and the companies that really invest in how can we create value for the consumer that allows them to want to put their data, in our hands and be able to communicate back what you're doing with it. Those that are successful at that, I think, are going to win favor with consumers, and those that ignore it or are sloppy, I think, will be penalized.
Yeah. Keith, you represent brands and advertisers as some of the biggest ones in the world at Publicis. Tell me your views on data in the near term.
Yeah, well, certainly we are all reacting to the recent adjustments with iOS and the change in tracking and cookies. And the way I look at that, at least from an industry standpoint, is yes, it's a challenge for us, as we'll be able, in the short term, we'll be a little less personalized than we used to be, and maybe your ad experience isn't as customized as it had been in the past. But boy, it's not the first time our industry has been impacted by change, and change on a scale that pundits may have thought would disrupt the entire industry and sink industries, and that hasn't been the case. Certainly, if you're communicating the right message at the right time to the right person, whether you've whether you've gotten there from a cookie or whether we were able to target you in some other way based on your behavior, you're still getting a great ad experience. And I look to not just how we'll reach consumers, but what that personalized ad experience is going to look like. And really, through, by you in the future here, near future, utilizing artificial intelligence within that ad space can replicate some of that lost personalization that we had going in. So really, it's going to, the opt-in and the permissions is king. And as David had mentioned, what's that value exchange? And really, if that value exchange means I can get an ad experience that's more immersive, that's able to, let me, check out that piece of furniture in my own space, or turn on the selfie lens and do a customized, makeup trial or something along those lines. We're giving up a little bit of the targeting for a better ad experience. That's something that I'm looking forward to as a technologist myself.
Thanks, Keith. We are at the bottom of the hour here in terms of we're going to have to do this again in person in LA very soon, but I'm going to ask each of you in 10 seconds max, because we've got a minute. Lori, I'm starting with you. What's the one out of the box consumer prediction that you expect to see before the end of the year as we come out of COVID? One prediction from consumers that you expect to see.
A lot more shopping directly from the TV.
Shopping from the TV from Lori. Tobin, you're on mute.
Let's see. Yeah. How about now? Yeah. I was going to say something around access control. You're going to see a lot of change in terms of how people let folks into their homes, like Key and other services.
Terrific. Access control. Scott.
So yeah, this was the area I didn't get to talk about because we ran out of time, but yeah, absolutely. Real-time dynamic segmentation. That's what I think, we should be talking about on the next one.
Segmentation. David.
Dynamic segmentation.
Dynamic segmentation. David.
Yeah, I would go back to the, frictionless buying via video, the ability to purchase directly out of video and have delivered.
So we've got two in the e-commerce world, frictionless out of video. And Keith, you're going to wrap us up.
Well, I think as we get back out into the world, 5G optimized experiences that are mobile will be something that'll proliferate and grow.
Scott, Keith, David, Lori, Tobin, thanks for a terrific conversation. I look forward to doing it with you all again. And to the Digital Hollywood audience, thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you all in person very soon. Bye now.